When hell freezes over is a common expression. Well, on one of my hunts, hell did. This was several years ago when my wife was still living, and we had the coldest winter that Georgia had seen in decades. It was down to very nearly 0 degrees Fahrenheit on the Georgia coast. And Hell Gate, which is a difficult water passage between the Georgia's coastal islands, indeed did not freeze, but the marsh did. There was ice on the marsh. Well, when I got ready to go on this hunt, things were all in a complete confusion. The federal government was in the midst of one of its shutdowns and revival, and maybe the hunt would go and maybe the hunt wouldn't go. Well, I prepared anyway. I had lived in Alaska and I had Arctic weight gear, and I was not embarrassed to take it down there. So we got our Arctic sleeping bag, we got one of our Parkers out, got some of our over trousers out, my wool OD shirts and so on. And so we got ready to go, and finally, a few days before the hunt, 3, I think, got an email message that the hunt was on. Come ahead. What? All right. So we put things in our vehicle and we motored down there to Cumberland Island, Georgia. It launches from St. Mary's, and you take one of the several ferries out there. And so we did, and actually, there were not terrible many people involved, so they used one of the smaller ferries to get us over there. But we made it, and we camped out, and we had our orientation. And it was cold, indeed. I camped a little bit up further than I would have normally, just to get some shelter. The wind was blowing and looked like it was going to continue to blow the next day. This is an unusual hunt in that on this particular hunt, you were limited to short-range weapons only. And those that were allowed were handguns, muzzleloaders, and crossbows, and bows and arrows. And those were the legal tools that you could use. Well, I had 2 guns to try. One was the Thompson Center Scout pistol. Now the Scout pistol looks something like the single action Army in that it has that same type of grip, but is a single shot, and mine was in .50 caliber, a good caliber for deer. And I was using 85 grains of powder and a 370 grain maxi ball bullet in that gun, which is a stout load. Yeah, I had no doubt that that would kill very well. I also was an early buyer of Thompson Center firearms and purchased a Contender number 1618. Well, the Contender had failed, and true to their warranty, I had sent that gun back to the factory. They considered it not repairable and replaced it with a new gun, a new Contender. And on this, I had a .44 Magnum barrel. So it would be a neat thing to compare deer taken with the .50 caliber muzzleloading pistol from Thompson Center and the .44 caliber Magnum pistol from Thompson Center. Yeah. Now that's a logical thing for a gun writer to try to do. And so that was our objective. And, well, I've always sort of been more fond of the muzzleloading end of things, so I took the Scout out first. First morning, full dawn, cold. It was cold. Well, in Cumberland Island, you walk out to your stands. Now, there's a large area of Cumberland Island that you may hunt, but you've got to hoof it out there. And you've got to carry your stand out there. And so I had a climbing stand, a lightweight climbing stand, one I still own, the Tomcat. And so we had put it on a cart so I could push it. Well, so I put all my stuff in the cart and started pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And the place I wanted to try was a pathway that looked out over the marsh, thinking all this cold would drive things in off the marsh. Well, in fact, they had, but they'd left the day or two before. So I was up a palm tree with all the marsh out in front of me and all this wind blowing at me. And it was cold. Yes, it was cold. And that palm tree goes, well, they want you to stay on stand until at least 10 o'clock, and then you can move around and relocate if you want, just to keep from disturbing other people in the woods and disturbing their hunts, because nobody knows where anyone else is. All right, I decided that wasn't the spot. So we took our gear back out to the road, and we went inside this time. We took one of the interior trails. And we saw what I thought was a likely looking fork that was sort of in a swale area. Cumberland Island is not just a flat island. There are beach ridges in it like this. And in these swales there are freshwater ponds. So we had water, we had food, we had pond, we had a little bit of, well, a savanna kind of thing with just grass growing. So I sat there on the trail, and I was still looking for a place to set up, and I heard something behind me, and I turned, and there was a deer. Well, what do you know? It was a doe. Adult deer. All the island deer are smallish, so this is not a huge 200-pounder, but an adult deer. So I took out my pistol, cocked it, aimed, squeeze, 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 bang! Deer went flip, 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 bang! Dead deer. One shot. Quick kill. All right. Well, now the only problem, I had to get that thing back out to the road. Well, yeah. Come on. The work starts. So we got the thing there, of course. I like the liver and heart, so I had a plastic bag to put that in. And so we took that and we started dragging. Dragged it out to the junction of the subsidiary path. And we had to make a right turn and take it out to the road itself in time to catch the truck, so the truck could carry it back. Well, I missed the truck. The truck had already gone. So, but my cart was there. So I put the cart down and with difficulty heaved the deer into the cart. And so I carted that deer all the way back to camp. Now thank God it wasn't a 200-pound deer. It was only about a 90 to 100-pound deer. Okay, an adult deer. And the Thompson Center scout had killed it very well. I always liked the way that pistol shot. I always liked the way it felt in the hands. Now, it was cumbersome to load, and it was cumbersome to clean, and needed special tools, and you had to carry a separate ramrod, and yeah, design of muzzleloading pistol is not the best. Now, there was also a muzzleloading scout rifle that looked something like a .94 Winchester. And the reason Thompson Center brought this out was this was among the very first inlines ever produced. And it came out in, well, I have it down as 1993 as its introduction. And at that time, and for, well, 10 years even, before that, was just a whole plethora of Western-style stories on TV. The Rifleman had been going on. It started in '58 and ended in '63, but the reruns were still going on during this time. That was Have Gun with Travel. That was Marshall Dillon. Yeah, all these Westerns. And so Thompson Center had picked up on this, and so they designed their Scout rifle and their Scout pistol. They use the same frame. They just changed the barrel length and put a gun stock on it, put a rifle stock on it, a crescent butt plate on the rifle, and then made the handgun look something like the '73 Colt, at least in gross profile. Although it was much more effective than the Colt revolver ever thought of being, even the Colt Walker, with the load I was using. So, we got that deer. One down, one to go. So now we took my new contender out with a .44 Magnum barrel. Well, that area worked, so we should try somewhere near the same, I thought. So again, we went tromping down the trail. And again, we were carrying our stand. And this time, we encountered another deer whilst I was on foot. Stand was on my back. Pistol was on my hip. When you're carrying a stand, it sort of unbalances the body. It tends to move as you move, even though I had it strapped on there pretty firmly. So I sunk down to my knee, drew the pistol from its holster, looked at the deer, cocked the pistol, aimed, boy! No huge amount of black smoke. But this time the deer did not fall. It ran. Okay. Well, I'm sure I hit him, and I'm sure I hit him well. The shot was maybe 30 yards. So no doubt I had put a bullet in the heart-lung area of that deer, and I just needed to let it die. So we marked that spot. There's no way I could carry that stand and that deer back together. So I marked the spot on the trail where I had shot the deer, and I took the stand back to the road and put it back in my garden-way cart. Back down the trail, back down to where I'd marked it, and started looking for blood. And it was still cold. But look. Thick brush down there, about chest high, very leafy, almost impenetrable to break your way through. But the deer had, and I had, and I could still see a could still see blood. It was there somewhere. But I just could not see it looking over all this mess of green. And so I kept slowly following the blood, drop by drop by drop, as it brushed off a leaf here and a leaf there, and against a branch, and I hauled my way through this stuff. Thank God I hadn't tried it with that stand on, or I would be there yet, I suspect. Well, still didn't see deer. Drat. Huh. Had to take a rest for a little bit. Well, at least the skeeters were down. I didn't have to worry about them that trip. They can be bad on that island, but not very bad, as a matter of fact. But not right then. So we saw the blue and kept on our way. Almost to the point of giving up. Then sort of peeking down through something, I saw a patch of white. It was so obscured I couldn't tell what it was. But it looked like a handkerchief or a napkin or something. Nothing, I couldn't see very much of it, but yeah, there was something white over there if I could get to it. Well, that was a hole underneath a fallen tree that was about this big around. And that deer had squirmed through all that brush and squirmed down into that hole, and there it had died. Whoa. The interior contents of a deer is about 30% of its body weight, at least. So, but I didn't have room to work in there. And if it wasn't for a compass that I was carrying, I wouldn't have had any idea where in the world in this tangle of green I was. So we had another tow. Got the straps on the deer and put the straps on me, and then started wiggling and pulling and yanking and towing this deer out of that terrible tangle of stuff. Thank God for compasses. It got me back out to the more open savanna where I'd shot the deer. Not exactly the same spot, but near enough. Well, finally I could gut the deer. I had room I could work, so I took some time and gutted the deer and saved the heart and lungs, saved the heart and liver as I usually do. Kidneys too. And so we gutted the deer. And we proceeded to, again, drag out to the junction of the road, make a left turn, drag up to the road. Well, this time I made the truck, thank God. So, park people could carry the deer back. But I had to push my cart back and my stand back, which I did, of course. But they took the deer back. Woof, 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 woof. Well, on that hunt, there were actually 31 hunters, I believe, that made it to the island. Only 6 deer were killed. And I killed 2 of them. One each with Thompson-Center muzzleloading pistols. Now, the guns I worked with then and the guns I'm working with now, that is the Seneca rifle, which you saw previously, those guns are no longer made and will never ever be made again. How can I be so sure? Because the factory that made that line of guns, as well as the Patriot pistol, burned, and the machinery with it. So those guns will never ever be resurrected. I've sold the Patriot pistol. I've sold the Scout pistol. I will sell the Seneca rifle and its extra barrel. So if you are interested, stay posted, and I'll put a minimum price on it after I research it a little bit. But now, this is Hovey Smith, reminding you to hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Be legal, be ethical, be safe. Goodbye, God bless, and see you next time.